It's a pleasure to introduce Tadia Rice. There are all kinds of surprises to be found in Hawaii. One of them is the talented Tadia Rice, an international management consultant with a lifetime of experience as an agent of change, complemented by a breadth of knowledge that crosses almost every industry. She's particularly qualified to speak to us today, she says, because it's Women's Equality Day. And she's been working towards equality for all since she began her career as one of the first female executives at Xerox Corporation. Her clients are business leaders who appreciate Tadia's global perspectives and cross-cultural savvy as they discover more about their authentic selves. They say she understands the leader's journey and that her approach is no nonsense and to the point. Tadia founded the Tadia Association, a nonprofit NGO that has educated 22 girls and women around the world. She is also a member of the Grammy Awards Producers Wing, the American Society for Training and Development, National Association of Parliamentarians, the Speakers Association of Hawaii, International Coach Federation of the UK, and Institute of Management and Consultants of South Africa. Tadia serves on the Honolulu Art Museum African American Film Festival panel and is a member of the Hula Oke Kaulani La Pua Hala o Kaio, an expert in sub-Saharan African geopolitical history. She is also a playwright and author. Tadia has written A Woman and Her Words, Breaking into the Boys Club, Whore into Hope, The Women of Rwanda, and is completing her upcoming book, Memoirs of Mandela, Life of a Cultural Chameleon. For her many accomplishments, she has been honored by numerous national and local governments around the world and in the United States. Please give a hand for Tadia Rice.
That was very gracious and very kind, very generous. I think I'm going to move down to the floor since we are a fairly intimate audience, and I'm going to be having some visuals for you to study. So if that is all right with you, I would like to get a little bit closer. You know, we only have a little bit of time to spend together, and I have learned in all these years of speaking and training and appearing that when you have time with others, you want to make it count. And that's been particularly poignant this last year for me when I ended up with a hole in my head. And so now I would like to come down with the hole in my head and be with you.
Come on down.
I'm not even sure that I need a microphone. I have never been accused of being quiet. So if you can all hear me this way, it's fine with me. In the back, can you hear me? Very good. I thank you for allowing me to come and share this time with you, and it was a particular joy to follow Tulsi. And she is a very hard act to follow. But she brought up so many points and so many topics that are important. And because it is Women's Equality Day in the United States, and you've read this story about Representative Bella Abzug and how she made this happen, I really want to focus on gender equality and men and women. How many men do we have here? You are in the minority, boys. Oh
Good.
My goodness. We are a lot of women here, aren't we? This is wonderful. I will be the first to acknowledge that there are differences in men and women. And Homer and Marge typify that. There are physical differences between us, aside from what is obvious on the outside. There's a lot of internal things we need to be aware of with one another for our health and our understanding. There's differences in how our brains work, the size of our brains, what happens to our brains, whether it's dopamine or hormone. How we process information is also differently. How our heart and circulatory system works differently. So please take a moment and review these differences. When it gets down to the stomach, it basically explains that Homer can't really hold his beer. Even though he tries, men are very weak when it comes to alcohol in their system, and so alcoholism is very rampant in men more than it is in women. So I would like to ask us if we can possibly reperceive this issue of femininity and masculinity and view gender maybe through the metaphor of an eagle. Now, not only is this eagle our wonderful national bird, a powerful, powerful animal, but it is an incredible opportunity for us to learn how we can be like this eagle. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have a vision as strong as theirs? Their vision is more clear, more powerful, 8 times more powerful than ours. So when they're flying at 15,000 feet at 35 miles an hour, they can see prey on the ground and access it. Now, what does that mean? It means that they will survive. They do not become the prey. They find the prey. So if we are going to be like this eagle, this magnificent species, with the ability to see better, to be stronger, to fly higher, to fly faster, to excel and to exceed, let's use them as the metaphor. Their wings are very strong. So I'd like to think that we as humans are the men and women, we are the wings of humanity. And one wing is men, and one wing is woman. But without both wings developed, our species is not going to excel or exceed any limitations. We're going to do what? What happens when a bird's wing is injured? How does the bird fly? In circles? Hits the ground, dies, remains injured, and when it's on the ground, what happens to that bird? Is that a natural way to live for the bird? No.
It becomes prey.
That's right, it becomes prey. It does not excel, it does not exceed. So what happens is, if we see ourselves as the eagle, and we know that we have to develop both of our wings equally, that men must develop and women deserve to develop, we must ensure and invest in our children so that they are fully functional and that they are powerful, more powerful than every preceding generation. They will be those 2 strong wings of the bird of humanity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, I know that there are some remarkable men in this audience who have done for women exactly this. We have some very forward-thinking men in this office. In this audience, and we have some very forward-thinking women as well. But we still have issues out there, don't we? When we go home to our boyfriends, our sons, our grandchildren, our husbands, our fathers, our uncles, does anybody here have an issue ever in communicating with them? I do. I admit it. I may use a phrase or words and I mean something entirely different than what they might hear, because language plays a very important role in our communication. So when we learn who we really are, when we are able to understand what our purpose really is, then we can change how we relate to one another. I know from my experience, I was raised the only girl among a whole lot of boys. Until I was 10 years old, there was not another girl in the family. So I would do everything the boys would do. I would run behind them, I would fall in the dirt, I would get scratched up. They would make a lot of fun of me because I couldn't keep up with them. And I learned then that it was not the same for me, and the only difference was I was a girl. So I wasn't allowed to play with cars, and I wasn't allowed to play in the dirt. And I think that although we've evolved in the years since my childhood, that social paradigm still functions. Little girls still wear their dresses, and little girls still can't fall in the grass or play or run around with boys as easily when they're little. So we are still socializing our children the same way that we were socialized. And so how do we change that? How do we build equality or equanimity into a new generation that can learn to release those kinds of prejudices, those gender prejudices? That's what is our task, is our generation to do, so that our children do not continue to perpetrate the mistakes that were given to us to continue. So we have to change society, because if we don't, we will continue to have war, we will not have global peace, and we will not have a society that can contribute to this planet to its fullest. We live in a society of extremes. We have Malala Yousafzai. Everyone knows who Malala is, the young 15-year-old Muslim girl that the Taliban went after and shot her in the head several times because she stood up and said, I want my people to be educated. I want to be educated. I want little girls to be educated. Everybody know this story? Yes. Malala Yousafzai, she went to London, they took her there, they saved her life, and she is to this day still speaking out and saying, I want education and I want the girls of my country to have education. So there is one end of the extreme that exists in our world. The other is our own country. What do our kids see every day? Lady Gaga. Last night it was Miley Cyrus in her underwear, but it was her costume. Now, I don't have a problem with them doing their thing as an artist, but I have a problem when our children are watching this and accepting this as a norm, that this is how one should look, that this is how girls are supposed to be if they want to be accepted and liked. They need to be sexy. Has anyone ever watched that TV show with the little children in beauty pageants? What's the name of that? Yes, Toddlers and Tiaras. What message is that sending to little boys? You don't see little boy beauty pageants, but you see little girl beauty pageants, and each one of those little girls are dressed to appear as a sexualized, grown woman. So now, what are our children learning? Everything in our society is preaching and teaching sexuality and violence. And what horrible crime is on the rise in America and around the world? Rape. You're right, rape. So what do we do to help our children change how they see themselves so that they can be the strong wing on each side of the common bird of humanity? What are we going to do? How do we eliminate the discrimination against women in a sensible way? How do we foster men and women having dialogue, having consultation, when the introduction to one another is sexuality or violence? How many people have children in the room? Do your children play video games? Are they violent video games? Anyone see the news last night? An 8-year-old boy in Texas, was it? Shot his 87-year-old caretaker because he had just finished watching a highly violent video game. We've heard in this last year, especially since gun safety has become an issue, how many children are firing guns and using guns and killing themselves, their parents, and other children. So you see, sexuality and violence seem to go hand in hand. Again, how do we take that and foster gender equality when you've got two powerful components that are visceral and operate on emotion? How do we bring that back to seeing ourselves differently as human beings and what our purpose is as human beings? Raising our own bar has to become our priority, has to be what we teach our children and our grandchildren. Our mo'opuna are just going to inherit the worst of the worst. If those of us who were born post-World War II, baby boomers, I see a few of us baby boomers in the audience. We grew up in a fear of what? Nuclear war, the atomic bomb. Oh my God, we're going to get bombed any minute. Roll, duck, and cover. Get under your desk to be protected from an atomic bomb. Well, our parents tried their best, but that fomented in us a certain level of discrimination about foreign people, about different people, about the Cold War and what it meant. And I come from the generation whose mothers were Rosie the Riveters. And those women were so happy to get their husbands back after World War II, they weren't going to leave the home if they didn't have to. But what was the message that they gave to us girls? You can be anything. If you want to be, you can be president. If you want to be, you can do anything. You can be a scientist. You can be an astronaut. So what happened in the 60s and 70s? Women went and tried to be those things. What happened? It didn't work. So the government came up with affirmative action. And if it wouldn't have been for affirmative action in the 70s, I wouldn't be standing here today, because that changed my life. That was when I was able to go from being a secretary or a factory worker into being an executive, like that, because I was needed. I filled 2 ticks on the affirmative action scale, and I was needed to fulfill a law at the time. And that was a grand benefit to myself and many other minorities who otherwise would not have jobs and would not have education. So now, where are we? We don't have affirmative action anymore. Our children are going to college to come out in deep, deep debt. They're getting educations that they can't get a job to do. So what now happens in our society? We are in a tough time economically, politically, socially. Everything is changing, and it will continue to change. So again, who we are and what we do. How do we help our children re-perceive who they are and who they can be? Girls and boys get different messages, and they get it through our language, and we have to be very, very careful what we say to our children. We have to be very careful what we say to other people in general. It's hard enough for a man to have a conversation with a man and a woman to have a conversation with a woman when they may have the same sociology behind them. But then when you mix a man and a woman talking, what happens? Is it easy communication? Anybody here married?
Not anymore.
It's different, not anymore. Language could have been a part of that. So controlling the messages that we receive are really important, because that has a lot to do with gender prejudice. And I know I'm speaking in generalities, but let me bring it home a little bit about language. I want to share with you what the last EEOC report had to say, because language is part of this. This is how many discrimination complaints were filed in the latest EEOC report. Now, language is a part of that. If you are in a workplace and you are verbally abusive to someone, that is the basis of a complaint. Am I correct? Has anyone here ever been verbally abused in the workplace? Male or female? Hands go up. How many are women? Women, raise your hands. All women, not one man is raising his hand. What does that say? I don't even need to explain that one. Only women raise their hand. Let me tell you what this costs us. The lack of equity in the workplace costs us $50 million a year. Our taxpayer dollars, your money and mine, goes to paying for the ignorance of our co-workers, our friends, possibly our spouses, maybe our children, maybe our in-laws, who don't have the sensitivity, who don't want to be disciplined, who are not willing to take mastery to a new level of being able to control their thought process to their mouth. It is really, really important that we control our language, both men and women. Women can be just as guilty of calling other women names and being verbally abusive. So I'm certainly not exempting anybody from this image here. This is our money going down the drain, because this is just federal, by the way. This is only federal workforce. This is not private business, private sector, just federal. So you see, it doesn't only have a social impact, it has a financial impact. This is draining us. We talk about government and fiscal controls. This is one area the government is trying to control. And what's important about this is that I see the government really as the parent of our nation. We are America. We are remarkable. Nobody in this room would doubt that. And I am always pleased when I can speak to military installations or anyone who is part of the United States government, because I know that there are sacrifices to your job. I know that not everybody that works for the government is sloughing off. I know that I would not ever complain about too big government. Yeah, there's inefficiencies. That exists everywhere. What I do care about is our government people trained, our institutions really supplied with the best knowledge and information to convey to the workers, to the people who are protecting us, to the people who are doing all kinds of jobs we never see and that we don't even know are being done. So if the government is America's parent, because doesn't this government make laws that companies have to obey? If I work for Xerox, Xerox has to obey employment law, correct? And who makes the law? The government. Okay? So if the government is the one who is setting the standard, they're raising the bar, they should not have this. They should not have these issues because we are looking to them. Private sector looks to the government and says, wow, our government is efficient and effective, and you know what? We don't have issues like this in our government because we have highly trained, well-educated, caring people who are sensitive to the law, and our standard is higher. We are not the Taliban. We are not operating in a vacuum. We are not a tiny little nation that is homogeneous. We are the most diverse population on the planet, living under one flag. All these things we can brag about, all these things that we can be so proud of. I don't want to ever see this again. Not just because it's my tax dollars and yours, but because we need to do better. And talking to you, I know you all want to do better and try to do better and probably are no happier than I am about $50 million going out the door. So I know that each one of you is an agent of change. Do you see yourselves as agents of change? How do we go about being the best, strongest, most powerful agent of change? You coexist in this world of increasing diversity. You have to learn to work effectively with all kinds of peoples. Here we are in America with freedom, freedom to fully be that eagle, fully developed with strong wings so that we can fly high and exceed and excel. And I know that everyone in this room would like to do that. I know that. So are you willing to be a strong, equal wing on the body of that bird, on the body of humanity? Because that's what it's going to take, your commitment to be an equal wing and to help the other wing develop, to be the helpmate. Do you speak a word? Would you please say this loud and proud? Because you will say it more beautifully than anyone else. Mahalo nui loa. And what that means, to do that which is good you hold, that which is flawed discard. That's what it means. So this is really as simple as just doing the right thing. Really, just doing the right thing. And I'm willing to do the right thing, and I've been working to do the right thing a long time, and I know you all have too. And it's going to take people like us to go to people who don't understand what the right thing is, to help them learn and understand it so they will do the right thing. And despite any differences, men and women need each other on so many levels and for so many reasons. We are helpmates to one another in so many ways. Our brothers and our sisters, as children, are helpmates. We grow into adults, we marry one another, we're helpmates. Even if we don't marry, we're still helpmates to someone because we all have extended family. So one of my favorite comedians is George Carlin, and I believe what he says. Women are crazy, men are stupid, and the main reason women are crazy is because men are stupid. So I thought about this, and I thought, should I really put this up there? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm as willing to be good crazy, great crazy, and in my craziness do what I need to do to make this world a better place. And I want you guys to be just as stupid, great stupid, good stupid, stupid enough to do the right thing and make this world a better place. So that as men and women, we become that great eagle with the strongest wings we've ever had in the history of humanity. So I'll be crazy, and please, you can be stupid. It's all right with me. Thank you.